Chapter 1101, Boyle. Few cars would drive into the university campus. At least, a fleet of cars would not enter the campus. Thus, when the fleet of black cars from the collection of gods entered the campus, it was like a thunderous noise that had broken through the silence. Furthermore, everyone recognized the symbol of the collection of gods. The collection of gods occupied a high position in the country. Thus, a large majority of the students adored the collection of gods. The collection of gods had the lifestyle and livelihood that they looked forward to, as well as being nationally recognized experts. But today had caused a stir as many people recognized that the custom car in the middle of the fleet was Sakurai Yako's ride. After Sakurai Yako had become the leader of the collection of gods, she had become a legend. Many students remembered her elegant demeanor in the swordplay club. However, the current Sakurai Yako and the Sakurai Yako on television seemed like two completely different people. She was dressed in black formal wear. Her entourage followed behind her. People involuntarily ran away due to her tyrannical aura. To typical people, the collection of gods was very mysterious and very strong. The collection of gods business was found everywhere in Japan. Many people wanted to join the collection of gods and work there after they graduated. When Sakurai Yako alighted from the car, a man, who had been curiously looking on, suddenly made eye contact with Sakurai Yako. Then, he looked away in shock. Everyone thought about it. Was Sakurai Yako from Kokushikan University? Everyone knew that Sakurai Yako's residence was not too far away from Kokushikan University. She could not have come here just to take a stroll, right? There were no interactions between the collection of gods and Kokushikan University. Even the courses taken by members of the collection of gods were conducted by either the University of Tokyo or their own experts. They did not work with Kokushikan University. Thus, Sakurai Yako's objectives for coming here were questionable. Everyone felt that she had no reason to come here. "How pretty," said one of the girls. When girls rated other girls, they would usually say, "not bad." When they praised someone as pretty, she was really very pretty. Sakurai Yako looked at one of the members of her entourage. "Lead the way." Then, the students surrounding the collection of gods saw that they were walking towards the Faculty of Law. Their aim was very clear. "They are heading towards the Faculty of Law," said someone. "What is she going to do? Hurry up and take a look. I think something big is going to happen." The moment Sakurai Yako appeared, all the surrounding girls became ugly ducklings. Sakurai Yako was the only swan left in the world. The valiant fleet of cars, as well as the valiant members of her entourage dressed in black suits, were like Sakurai Yako's backdrop. They had appeared in a very formidable manner, but no one knew what her aim was. Sakurai Yako walked towards the Faculty of Law and climbed up the stairs. Even her posture when she walked up the steps was perfect. The surrounding students suddenly felt as if Sakurai Yako was portraying her most perfect side. She wanted to be admired. Who did she want to be admired by? The surrounding students all knew that it was not them. Many students had gathered in the corridor. Lu Shu had gone out as well. To be honest, he was curious what Sakurai Yako was doing here. Had his character collapsed once again? But when had his identity collapsed? He scanned the crowd. Suddenly, he saw Chiba Mahiro laughing at him. Lu Shu suddenly realized that Chiba Mahiro had probably maintained a good relationship with Sakurai Yako. Then, she had told Sakurai Yako when she discovered his identity. Could it be? His disguise had been flawless. Why had he been discovered? Did Chiba Mahiro know him very well? But Lu Shu was not too sure that Chiba Mahiro had discovered him. After all, her gaze was biased. Okita Mia looked at Lu Shu. "Are you not going?" The law students looked at Lu Shu and laughed. To them, Yokoyama Hiroshi was not an important person. They might forget about him tomorrow. He was just additional material to laugh at when he was brought up. Lu Shu did not care about them. At that moment, the synchronized sound of footsteps came from the end of the corridor. It was as if they had coordinated their footsteps with one another. It was like a melody. When Sakurai walked to the third-floor corridor, she turned and looked around at the environment and students. No one dared to speak. They even nervously held their breaths. Then, the law students realized that Sakurai was walking towards them. Was she looking for one of them? Saito Rin asked Chiba Mahiro in a small voice, "Is she here to find you?" As Chiba Mahiro's best friend, Saito Rin knew that Sakurai was her good friend. Chiba Mahiro laughed and shook her head. "She is not looking for me." Saito Rin was confused. If she was not looking for Chiba Mahiro, then who was she talking to? Why had she arranged a large formation and excited the crowd? Sakurai came in front of the students. Okita Miya stood in front of them, but involuntarily gave way. They had realized that Sakurai was not looking at them. She was looking at someone behind. Who was behind them? Yokoyama Hiroshi? When Okita Miya thought about this, she had an unpleasant premonition. Sakurai walked through the crowd and walked to Lu Shu. She had a stern expression on her face. Suddenly, she laughed. The law students around them suddenly felt that Sakurai was very pretty when she laughed. But she could not understand. It seemed like Sakurai had come to find Yokoyama Hiroshi. But what interactions did Yokoyama Hiroshi and Sakurai have? When they thought about how pretty Sakurai was when she laughed with Yokoyama Hiroshi, many boys were very jealous. The worst possible outcome could not possibly happen. Many men were in despair. The next moment, Sakurai was like a small girl. She said to Lu Shu, "Long time no see. Shouldn't we hug?" As she spoke, Sakurai did not wait for Lu Shu to answer. She spread out her arms and hugged him. This happened in an instant. She rested her head on Lu Shu's shoulder and paused for a second. Then, she let go. Sakurai was at peak happiness. It felt good to see him again. The rest of the students in the school had caught up. They seemed to have heard what Sakurai had said. Everyone looked at one another helplessly. Everyone fell silent. Then, they started to boil. Chapter 1102, How Did You Discover Me? The fact that Sakurai had come to Kokushikan University was like a tide. It continuously crashed against the minds of the Kokushikan University students. They had thought of many possibilities. For example, was Sakurai preparing to organize a collaboration between the Collection of Gods and Kokushikan University? For example, would they select talents from Kokushikan University? It was definitely something important. After all, Sakurai identity and background had confirmed the guesses of the students. Then, this background had suddenly collapsed. Who would have expected that the leader of the Collection of Gods, Sakurai had come all the way to Kokushikan University just to hug a male student? Nobody expected Sakurai to act like a little girl? This feeling, it was like an explosive had gone off. Lu Shu was helpless. His character had collapsed just like that. Did this make sense? He curiously asked in a small voice, "How did you discover me?" Sakurai looked at Lu Shu. Lu Shu immediately understood what she meant. He still had the tab on his finger. In the morning, after Sakurai saw Saito Rin, she told Chiba Mahiro that Lu Shu might be here. Chiba Mahiro and Sakurai knew that Lu Shu had the ability to change his appearance. Thus, Chiba Mahiro subconsciously took note of his new appearance. This morning, when Kajiyama Hiroshu appeared in the classroom and spoke in an arrogant manner, Chiba Mahiro subconsciously looked at Lu Shu's finger. Then, she saw the tab. Many people had paid attention to the wedding on Sardinia and how many people Coral and Lu Shu had killed. But Sakurai Yako and Chiba Mahiro were more specific in their attention. They noticed Lu Shu. Sakurai Yako had even sent someone to Europe and obtained very important information. For example, they found the priest who had approved the wedding. For example, they knew about the tab. Lu Shu felt that his character could not have collapsed just because of one sentence. Lu Shu felt that this was acceptable, but he did not know whether Kageyama Hiroshu would be able to accept this. Kageyama Hiroshu, who had been invisible, was famous after this hug. He could not even go out. Lu Shu even felt that this might go on the news. At that moment, Kageyama Hiroshu, who stayed at home and could not reveal himself, suddenly received a message from Zhong Yutong. Tonight at 8 p.m., someone will fetch you and your father at the port. Welcome home. He had to go home. The identity of Kageyama Hiroshu was too conspicuous. Suddenly, Kageyama Hiroshu was slightly excited. Lu Shu would probably think about him. He might be worried about what he would do if he did not have a diploma. But to Kageyama Hiroshu, he wanted to return to his homeland. Furthermore, he knew that his father wanted to go back. Lu Shu had been overly anxious about Kageyama Hiroshu's livelihood. The Heavenly Network would not let Kageyama Hiroshu and his father starve. Furthermore, their savings in China had far exceeded their imagination. This was what Kageyama Hiroshu's father had exchanged his life for. Taniguchi Bundai did not want to go back, but Kageyama Hiroshu and his father were different. For some reason, Kageyama Hiroshu was even somewhat grateful for Lu Shu's arrival. He just could not understand why Sakurai Yako would go to Kokushikan University just to hug him. Kageyama Hiroshu did not know Lu Shu's identity. He just felt that this world was slightly absurd, a great person had come. He was lying in ambush just to obtain information. When this person came, he was prepared to run away with the leader of the collection of gods. Kageyama Hiroshu's admiration towards Lu Shu was hard to describe with words. But at this moment, Kageyama Hiroshu had something else to be excited about. Okita Mie had been there at the scene. Kageyama Hiroshu felt that there was nothing wrong with Okita Mie's decision. If one did not have any good conditions, then they should give up. However, Okita Mie had spread this to all the girls, causing Kageyama Hiroshu to feel very dejected. As a male, he could not respond to this. He was not willing to respond either. But when he thought about the scene in Kokushikan University, he was suddenly grateful towards Lu Shu. It was as if Lu Shu had inserted a full stop in his failure of a life. Although he was not the main protagonist, he liked this ending. It was time to go. He could not be reluctant to leave. Kageyama Hiroshu decided that once he landed in China, he would ask who this great person was. He had to thank him when he completed his mission. At that moment, Okita Mie and the other girls, who were behind Sakurai Yako, all collapsed. Just a few minutes ago, they had treated Kageyama Hiroshu with disdain. But now, the girls said that this was not absolute, but this was the situation. To be honest, Okita Mie and the rest did not even have the confidence to compare themselves to Sakurai Yako. Sakurai Yako's eyes lit up. She looked at Lu Shu. This is not the place to talk. Let's leave. Lu Shu laughed bitterly. Today's battle had been a big one. His identity had collapsed. Earlier, Lu Shu had wondered whether Sakurai Yako still remembered the friendship between them, but she had proven everything. A group of people left the Faculty of Law. They got into the fleet of cars and left Kokushikan University at lightning speed. When Lu Shu saw the direction the cars were headed towards, he knew that they were going to the Kirihara dojo. Chiba Mahiro was in the car as well. Sakurai Yako suddenly asked, "Were you the one spying on me last night from the wall of the dojo? Why didn't you come to meet me?" Lu Shu was helpless. "The slave owners from the Luniverse are targeting you. I don't want to act rashly and alert the enemy, ahem." Sakurai Yeko inadvertently undid the first button of her blouse. It seemed as if it was very hot inside the car. Sakurai Yeko curiously looked at Lu Shu. Lu Shu pretended not to see her. Furthermore, the slave owners from Southeast Asia are rushing here. There is a possibility that many Class A's will come. Are you listening to me? Sakurai Yeko laughed. Teacher, you are here. Do I still need to be afraid? When Lu Shu heard this, he was dumbfounded. After some careful thought, he realized that there was nothing wrong with this name. He had taught Sakurai Yeko swordplay. But something felt weird. At this moment, Sakurai Yeko was not thinking of a plan against the slave owners. The joy in her heart prevented her from thinking about anything else. Lu Shu had realized that she was in danger and had come to protect her. At this moment, the news that Sakurai Yeko had personally come to Kokushikan University to hug a boy spread throughout the entire Tokyo. It even spread to further areas. The impact of this was very large. It exceeded the expectations of those who had been involved. Chapter 1103, Sakurai Yeko's Weakness. The cars stopped outside the Kirihara dojo. Sakurai Yeko's bodyguards stood beside the door respectfully. Nobody was watching this scene, as not only did Sakurai Yeko purchase the entire Kirihara dojo, she also bought the land nearby. This was also the reason why Lu Shu's information was all found out within the first day. There were no other people nearby the Kirihara dojo. The Kirihara dojo was a yard. Therefore, if there were tall buildings nearby, people could peek into how the yard looked like using binoculars. Therefore, Sakurai Yeko demolished all the buildings which were taller than 2 stories nearby. If anyone climbed onto a rooftop nearby, they would be discovered immediately. Therefore, Lu Shu was blatantly observing the dojo under the surveillance of dozens of members of the collection of gods. Now, Lu Shu felt speechless after knowing this. Looks like a Class A expert could be targeted by technology at times. It could only be solved by delayed observation. Luckily, there was no such technology in the Luniverse, or Lu Yizhao might be targeted. However, couldn't the Wei-Wu army make use of technology to equip themselves, at least using night vision devices? Although practitioners' vision was very powerful, night vision was still a limitation. When Sakurai Yeko, Chiba Mahiro, and Lu Shu walked towards the dojo, the middle-aged lady behind her suddenly asked in a deep voice, "When should I pick you up at night?" Usually, Sakurai Yeko would tell her the time personally. Before this period of time, the vehicles stayed away and were parked at some other location. There were buildings of the collection of gods nearby, and one of them was used as a rest site for Sakurai Yeko's drivers and bodyguards, while waiting for her. Yet today, Sakurai Yeko did not say the time. The middle-aged lady reminded her, as she thought Sakurai Yeko had forgotten about it. However, Sakurai Yeko said, "You don't have to pick me up tonight, just wait for instructions nearby." The middle-aged lady took a deep breath but held it in. Just now. Sakurai Yeko said that she did not have to pick her up. The middle-aged lady looked at Lu Shu in extreme shock. Lu Shu was annoyed. "Why are you looking at me? I am innocent." "Hold on, what's with that unbelievable expression?" From Motegi Toshimitsu's Distress, plus 788. Lu Shu felt helpless. How did such a high number of distress points come about? Meanwhile, Sakurai Yeko had not sat still during the period of time since their last meeting. The collection of gods had already completed their reform. At the beginning, when Sakurai Yeko took over as the leader of the collection of gods, the first thing she did was make the entire collection of gods stay loyal to her. Therefore, although this made everyone feel surprised, they did not overthink it. They only felt that Lu Shu was impressive. Motegi Toshimitsu did not say anything else and respectfully left with the bodyguards. When Lu Shu stepped into the dojo, he felt as though he had entered another world. It had been a long time since he last came inside. Like a little girl, Sakurai Yeko introduced excitedly, "We haven't touched your bedroom. Everything inside your bedroom still looks the same. Why don't you stay here temporarily? I think that Matsuyama Shuji's rental apartment must be uncomfortable." After that, Sakurai Yeko looked at Lu Shu in anticipation. She hoped that Lu Shu could stay. Lu Shu said happily, "This is not important, I can stay anywhere." Sakurai Yeko was happy. This was definitely important, how could it be not important? At least, it was important to her. Lu Shu took a glance at the interior of the room and suddenly realized that it was really very clean, as though someone had cleaned it every day. Therefore, if nobody in the collection of gods could enter the dojo, Sakurai Yeko must be the person who was cleaning the place. A leader of the collection of gods cleaned the yard every day? Sakurai Yeko said, "You take a rest first, I will come out after changing into my home clothes." After 10 minutes, Sakurai Yeko went to Lu Shu in her sakura kimono and smiled gently to Lu Shu, "Is it pretty?" Cough cough, let's get down to business. Lu Shu diverted the topic. Sakurai Yeko did not pursue. Instead, she knelt down opposite Lu Shu and listened attentively. As compared to the heavenly network, the collection of gods was relatively weaker in terms of their intelligence gathering. In the past, they were very powerful, but after a period of hiatus, the collection of gods took away quite a lot of power. Moreover, some of the intelligence power was taken away by Yu Mingyu. Therefore, the intelligence capability of the collection of gods was way inferior to the heavenly network. The information brought by Lu Shu helped her to understand what exactly was happening in the outside world. Since the start, Sakurai Yeko had not mentioned anything about him being a spy. It seemed as though she did not mind. After listening to Lu Shu for a while, Sakurai Yeko said, "So all of them came from the Luniverse, right? Will you return to the Luniverse in the future? Do you need me to help?" "I think you will need it, having more manpower is better." Lu Shu did not know how to react. "Let's not talk about this. You should be careful of the slave owners from Southeast Asia. There is likely to be multiple Class A's amongst them. If they forcefully put the slave seal on you, it would be disastrous." "If a slave seal was forcefully put on me, will you kill me? Or will you help me find the slave owner and kill him?" asked Sakurai Yeko. Lu Shu felt helpless. Why was a leader of an organization so good at diverting topics? "You have to watch out for your safety, safety, safety. Important things should be emphasized thrice," emphasized Lu Shu. "There is already a way to resolve this problem," smiled Sakurai Yeko. Nakagawa Masaharu and Oda Masako hid in the forest near the Kokushikin University. Both of them heard about what Sakurai Yeko stirred up in school but was not able to rush over to witness it personally. Nakagawa Masaharu looked at Oda Masako and said, "Master had sent a message. Sakurai Yeko is rather fierce and powerful. We can't touch her for now. The other slave owners are rushing over, but we have to finish our mission before they arrive, as Master is afraid that they will snatch her over." This was the first time Oda Masako had heard the term snatch. So the slave owners had a competitive relationship too? He asked calmly, "So, what should we do?" "We have found Sakurai Yeko's weakness already," smirked Nakagawa Masaharu. "She exposed it by herself. Kajiyama Hiroshu is an ordinary man. Master asked us to control him and find a way to stir something out of him." Oda Masako thought that what Nakagawa said made sense, but felt that something was wrong too. Chapter 1104, Watch a Movie with You. As night fell, Lu Shu did not know what to eat for dinner. He was not used to the food overseas. Be it Japan or Sardinia, he felt that it did not suit his appetite. However, Japan did not sell any ordinary seasoning from China. It was extremely difficult to get them. Lu Shu took a glance at Sakurai Yeko and Sakurai Yeko felt embarrassed. "Teacher, can you make the fish-flavored shredded pork again? I ate it in a Chinese restaurant before, but it tasted extremely different from yours." Sakurai Yeko was really embarrassed. She thought that the fish-flavored shredded pork was delicious, but to ask Lu Shu to cook for her, it was. Lu Shu asked, "Do you have the seasoning from China?" "Yes, yes." Sakurai Yeko nodded immediately. "I bought them quite long ago, but I do not know how to cook." Lu Shu rolled his sleeves. "All right, wait for dinner." Sakurai Yeko knelt at the corridor quietly and smiled as she looked at Lu Shu prepare the ingredients. She suddenly felt happy. This was something that she had been waiting ages for. Because of that, she found the courage to ask Lu Shu to cook for her. As night fell, Motegi Toshimitsu, who was training at a temporary accommodation nearby, suddenly received a call from Sakurai Yeko. Sakurai Yeko said on the phone, "Motegi, come over for a while." Motegi Toshimitsu rushed over to the dojo's door but did not dare to enter as Sakurai Yeko did not allow them to enter without her permission. At this moment, Sakurai Yeko said, "Come in." Motegi Toshimitsu was pleasantly surprised. She was probably the first person to ever enter the dojo. She was confused with what Sakurai was doing with Lu Shu. Why did Sakurai ask her to come over at such a late timing? Actually, Motegi Toshimitsu had guessed that Kageyama Hiroshu was probably being impersonated by the ninth heavenly king. She was even more sure after the hugging incident. Therefore, she would not be surprised if anything happened at night. However, after she entered, she found that Sakurai Yeko had small pieces of notes stuck all over her face. Lu Shu and Chiba Mahiro too. All three of them held a deck of poker cards in their hands. Sakurai Yeko became awkward after her servant came. Motegi, can you calculate the gambling bill with Lu Shu-san?" Motegi Toshimitsu looked at Lu Shu in astonishment. "Such a beautiful girl lived with you and you are only concerned with winning money from her?" However, Motegi Toshimitsu suddenly realized that Sakurai Yeko, who had small pieces of notes all over her face, looked much cuter and kinder than her usual self. She had never seen this side of Sakurai Yeko before. At this moment, Sakurai Yeko removed the small pieces of notes from her face and said calmly, "Settle the admission in Kokushikan University. I am going to the Faculty of Science and Engineering from tomorrow onwards." Motegi Toshimitsu felt that ever since Lu Shu arrived, shocking news followed consecutively. Sakurai Yeko wanted to go to school like ordinary people? In the past, Lu Shu had said that everyone needed an ordinary life. That was because the slave owners were dangerous on Earth and it would be for the best if they could take this opportunity to kill them. However, he feared for Sakurai Yeko's safety. Lu Shu did not want to use Sakurai Yeko as bait. However, Sakurai Yeko did not think that it was a problem. She said that there was a solution for her safety concerns. That solution would be to stay with Lu Shu. From Sakurai Yeko's point of view, by being with Lu Shu and having both people of the Shinsong Jing in the Heavenly Network protect her, nobody would be able to hurt her. Lu Shu felt helpless. He suddenly realized that Sakurai Yeko's so-called solution was to follow him. At night, when Lu Shu was about to sleep, the wooden door of his bedroom was forcefully pulled open and Sakurai Yeko asked while smiling, "Teacher, I would like to ask you a question." Lu Shu was stunned for a moment before he replied, "Ask." "Do you like to watch movies?" asked Sakurai Yeko. "Yes, but I haven't had time to watch any lately." Lu Shu was telling the truth. He was busy working to earn money, how would he have time to watch movies? "Do you want to watch a movie with me?" asked Sakurai Yeko. "Whatever movie you want to watch." Then, Lu Shu watched all of the Transformers movies that night. At dawn the next morning, Sakurai Yeko almost broke down. Chiba Mahiro laughed hysterically as she saw Sakurai Yeko's condition. Motegi Toshimitsu came to the front of the dojo with the cars. She said to Sakurai Yeko, "The admission procedures have been settled overnight. However, your initial plan for today is to visit the University of Tokyo. Do you want to go to class or the visit first?" Sakurai Yeko said calmly, "Cancel all my plans for now." Lu Shu said, let's not head to school together first. Give me 2 bicycles, I want to ride a bicycle. He was worried that students would suspect if both of them left school and headed back to school together. He was all right with it, but Sakurai Yako would definitely have to worry about her reputation as she was a girl. Therefore, if both of them parted ways, nobody would suspect that the both of them stayed together the previous night. Lu Shu thought that although everyone was innocent, there was a need to avoid such gossip. Sakurai Yako smiled and did not reject him. She sat in the car and left immediately. She was not disappointed but instead felt warm inside. As for what happened to Lu Shu and her, it was not the first time she had failed, it was fine as long as she got used to it. Lu Shu rode the bicycle alone on the small road. He suddenly enjoyed this lifestyle. It felt as though he was an ordinary student. Then, someone roared from the roadside, "Attack!" After that, one person dashed out from the left and right side of the road respectively. One of them was stunned. "It's you." Lu Shu looked at Nakagawa Masaharu and Oda Masako and felt confused. Why did the both of them come over? Could they be stopping him because of how he gave directions? Nakagawa Masaharu smiled coldly. You must have a good relationship with Sakurai Yako. Are you worried if I told you that she went missing? Lu Shu was completely stunned. Seeing Lu Shu's expression, Nakagawa Masaharu thought he was stunned beyond words. He laughed coldly. Relax, come with us, someone wants to meet you. Then, Lu Shu said with his eyes glowing, what are we waiting for, let's go now. Nakagawa Masaharu suddenly felt that. His reaction was different from what he had expected. Chapter 1105, Lu Shu has been kidnapped. To Nakagawa Masaharu, if he kidnapped someone, they should be afraid or try to run away. They would at least be nervous. But Nakagawa Masaharu did not expect that his first victim was somewhat excited. Did he have too little experience, or were the scenes that had been played on television too fake? Where had he gone wrong? As far as he knew, Kajiyama Hiroshu was an ordinary person. Furthermore, there could not be any mistakes in his information, as he had not gotten it from someone else. He personally knew Kajiyama Hiroshu. Nakagawa Masaharu was a senior in the Faculty of Law. Although he was not famous in Kokushikan University, he had many friends. He did not even need to focus on Kajiyama Hiroshu either. Information would come to him from people who were near Kajiyama Hiroshu, such as his dorm mates and classmates. Kajiyama Hiroshu being hugged was major news. No one could ignore the existence of Sakurai Yako. Most information regarding Kajiyama Hiroshu had been dug up, including the people who had bullied him, and his physical fitness scores. From various sources of information, Nakagawa Masaharu knew for sure that Kajiyama Hiroshu was an ordinary person. Thus, he had reported this to his slave owner. The slave owner did not completely trust him. He asked Nakagawa Masaharu to sort out all the information regarding Kajiyama Hiroshu and give it to him. After looking through the information, he also felt that Kajiyama Hiroshu was an ordinary person. Then what were they waiting for? Kidnap him. But they did not expect Lu Shu to have the same point of view. What were you waiting for? Hurry up and kidnap me. Nakagawa Masaharu hesitated. There was something wrong with the script. Suddenly, Nakagawa Masaharu laughed coldly. Do you think we will give up with that empty show of strength? You think too simply of us. Yes. Nakagawa Masaharu thought that Lu Shu was acting. He had shown his excitement to confuse them. Then, he would make them give up. But would Nakagawa Masaharu give up? How could he give up so easily when he had the opportunity to serve his slave owner? Lu Shu took a deep breath. I'm sorry. My acting might have been too exaggerated. I might have scared you. Nakagawa Masaharu's expression darkened. Was this the time to talk about his acting? He turned and said to Oda Masako, bring the car over. I will sit at the back and take care of him. You drive. Oda Masako left. Nakagawa Masaharu laughed coldly at Lu Shu. Don't try to run away. You are facing a metahuman. Lu Shu felt that it had been a long time since he had met such a stubborn metahuman. He was slightly curious. The slave owner behind this was one of the many slave owners. Frankly speaking, he was a pawn of the Luniverse. Then why did they not wait for the other slave owners to arrive? They would be stronger, right? Lu Shu did not know that the slave owners spent most of the time fighting for themselves. They were doing their best to expand their team of slaves. They did not even know why they had to accept so many slaves, as this was a death order. The slave owners only knew that a higher-leveled power would control this plan. The car came over. Before Nakagawa Masaharu could urge Lu Shu to get in the car, Lu Shu opened the car door and got in himself. He sat at the back. Nakagawa Masaharu was dumbfounded. He did not know what to do next. Lu Shu looked at Nakagawa Masaharu and asked, "Get in. Why are you standing there dumbfounded for?" From Nakagawa Masaharu's distress, plus 666. Nakagawa Masaharu's expression was dark. He opened the car door. After today, he would do research on kidnapping cases. He wanted to see whether other people had encountered such strange victims. Oda Masako stepped on the accelerator. He did not say anything throughout. He had interacted with Kajiyama Hiroshu before. When Lu Shu disguised himself as Kajiyama Hiroshu and stepped out of the toilet, he had bumped into Oda Masako and asked him for directions. Thus, Oda Masako had a lasting impression of Lu Shu. He felt that Lu Shu was not an ordinary person. Lu Shu looked at where they were going. First, Oda Masako went in circles in Setagaya. When Nakagawa Masaharu received a message, they drove towards Kanagawa. Lu Shu suspected that the slave owner was in Kanagawa. In the morning, the students had just woken up. Employees formed a continuous stream on the streets. A fleet of cars from the collection of gods came to Kokushikan University in a very conspicuous manner. All the students were shocked. Why were they here again? Their first thought was, where was Kajiyama Hiroshu? They were definitely here to find him. They walked around, but no one saw Kajiyama Hiroshu. What was happening? Sakurai Yako was not dressed in formal wear today. Instead, she was dressed in a style that she liked in her student days. However, her clothes were new. Her old clothes were tight around her chest area. The fleet of cars stopped outside the Faculty of Science and Engineering. They waited outside the building while Sakurai Yako was having lessons. Everyone who walked past felt some pressure. Sakurai Yako looked at her timetable and sighed with emotion. I have lessons during the first period. It had been a long time since she stepped on campus. The students nearby were still rather friendly. When she saw the posters and costumes the girls were holding, she suddenly recalled that it was the middle of May. The Kokushikan University School Festival being held on Saturday and Sunday was coming. This was a very interesting event. The last time Lu Shu had come, it had been very rushed. This time, she could bring him around. Sakurai Yako was not aware that the slave owners were targeting her. She thought that Lu Shu would naturally get rid of them, she did not have to worry. When the students saw Sakurai Yako, they felt that this world was quite magical. Last night, someone said that the collection of gods had helped Sakurai Yako register for school. Furthermore, she was in the same class as Kajiyama Hiroshu. Sakurai Yako was going to school? Was this not magical? She was the leader of the collection of gods. Some girls started to imagine. Had Sakurai Yako come here because of Kajiyama Hiroshu? Just how attractive was Kajiyama Hiroshu? At that moment, Motegi Toshimitsu, who was dressed in formal wear and high heels, walked over and said in a small voice, He was kidnapped on the way to school. Sakurayeko was shocked. Who is so eager to die? Motegi Toshimitsu was speechless. Sakurayeko had subconsciously decided that whoever dared to kidnap Lu Shu was eager to die.
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty, man, we just putting on a show. Try to look to the heavens.